Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today, we dive deep into a true story where trust shatters and mystery consumes. The Hunt for the Crypto King. 2022, a gripping documentary that unveils one of the most baffling financial disappearances in modern history. This film takes us into the world of cryptocurrency investors who poured their hard-earned money into a Canadian crypto exchange called Quadriga CX, only to lose it all after its founder, Gerald Cotton, suddenly died, and with him vanished over $250 million worth of digital assets. The documentary unravels how investors, desperate for truth, uncovered shocking details about the lost $250 million and questioned whether the curtains were ever really lifted on one of the biggest crypto scandals the world has ever seen. So sit back, watch till the end, and don't forget to share your thoughts, because this is not just a story, it's a mystery that changed the crypto world forever. Our story begins in Vancouver, where we meet Andrew Wagner, the Director of Public Relations at Vancouver Bitcoin. Andrew's job was to educate people about cryptocurrency, about how digital money like Bitcoin could change the financial world. Then we're introduced to Alex Saucht, another crypto enthusiast from Vancouver. He was part of a small circle of about a dozen people passionate about the rise of Bitcoin. During his work, Alex met Gerald Cotton, the man who would later become the center of this unfolding storm. Andrew describes Gary as a very friendly, positive, and enthusiastic person, someone who radiated confidence. Next, we meet Amber, Gary's close friend, who recalls how charming and intelligent he was. Gary loved technology and had a natural gift for presenting ideas to people with clarity and charm. Then we see Gary himself in an old interview. He explains how difficult it was to buy Bitcoin in Canada at the time. That's why, he says, he launched Quadriga CX, a platform where people could buy Bitcoin using traditional money. Through Quadriga, users could convert their Canadian dollars into Bitcoin easily and securely. At least, that's what everyone believed. Gary also explained that Quadriga charged a small fee whenever people traded on its website or app. And soon, the idea caught on. People saw Quadriga CX as the bridge that could make cryptocurrency more legitimate in Canada. Then, one day, the impossible happened. Someone shouted, "Have you seen the price of Bitcoin?" It was on every news channel. From 2008 to 2016, Bitcoin prices skyrocketed. It crossed the $1,000 mark, then surged even higher, from $5,000 to $19,000. There was no sign of stopping. The once obscure digital coin no one had heard of was now front-page news. Alex recalls that when Quadriga was founded in 2013, Bitcoin was worth barely a few dollars. By 2017, it reached nearly $20,000, and Quadriga CX became a household name among Canadian crypto traders. Next, we're introduced to Tong Zhu, a software engineer living in San Francisco. Many of Tong's friends had made fortunes by investing early in Bitcoin. He remembers watching a video of a friend proudly showing off his new Lamborghini, saying he had bought Bitcoin in 2011 at just 25 cents. Now, with Bitcoin's soaring price, his investment had turned into millions. Inspired, and perhaps a little desperate to catch the same wave, Tong took a loan of $85,000 from the bank and invested all of it in various cryptocurrencies. For a while, things went incredibly well. By 2017, Gerald Cotton was a millionaire many times over. He owned luxury cars, private planes, yachts, and even purchased a small private island. Amber recalls hearing that Gary had gotten married and started traveling the world, sharing glamorous moments on social media. Meanwhile, Bitcoin prices kept soaring, reaching new peaks with each passing week. But then, the inevitable happened. Bitcoin's price began to fall, slowly at first, then sharply. And with that crash, the difficulties for Quadriga CX began. By December 2018, Bitcoin had plunged below $4,000. Within just 24 hours, the crypto market had lost billions of dollars. News channels across the world declared the Bitcoin bubble had finally burst. Reports blamed countries like China and South Korea for banning Bitcoin trading and mining. Tong was devastated. He had lost 80% of his investment, a massive blow considering it was all borrowed money. The debt weighed on him heavily. To pay off the crushing interest, he had to mortgage his possessions and eventually sold his house. After selling it, he was left with about $400,000. Looking for a way to recover, Tong decided to use Quadriga CX to buy Bitcoin again, hoping to sell it for a profit, since Quadriga offered a 10% premium. But when he tried to withdraw his money, something strange happened. The withdrawal requests kept getting delayed. Days turned into weeks, then months, and still, his money never came. Meanwhile, in Toronto, we meet Alexandra, a journalist working for the Globe and Mail. She began receiving countless emails from Quadriga users in late 2018. All of them said the same thing. They couldn't withdraw their money. Quadriga had processed over $1.2 billion in transactions that year, earning profits on every trade. Yet users' funds were mysteriously locked up. Concerned, Alexandra emailed Gerald Cotton directly, asking why customers were unable to withdraw their funds. Gary replied, claiming that the company's money had been frozen by the bank, that the banks didn't trust crypto exchanges. He said $26 million was stuck in the system, blaming the financial institutions for the delays. He even asked Alexandra to share the names of affected users so he could personally reach out to them. To Alexandra, Gary came across as polite and sincere, maybe even genuinely concerned, but the reality was darker. Tong, like many others, continued waiting. October passed, November passed, December came and went, but his funds were still trapped inside Quadriga. Every email reply promised resolution within 2 weeks, but it never came. By the time 2019 arrived, Tong was emotionally exhausted. His entire life savings were at stake. Then something strange happened. Amber recalls receiving a message from Gary around that time. In it, Gary mentioned that he was traveling, but he also asked her not to tell anyone where he was. It sounded suspicious, almost as if he was hiding. Then, on January 14, 2019, shocking news broke across every Canadian channel. Gerald Gary Cotton, founder and CEO of Quadriga CX, was dead. His wife, Jennifer Robertson, released a statement saying that Gary had suddenly fallen ill and died while traveling in India. The announcement sent shockwaves through the crypto world. Soon after, Quadriga CX's website went offline. Reports revealed that only Gary knew the passwords to the company's crypto wallets, meaning more than $190 million worth of customers' digital currency was now locked forever. Panic spread. Tong couldn't believe it. He felt like he was having a heart attack, the pressure in his chest tightening as reality sank in. His money, his future, everything was gone. Then we meet Eli Musavi, an AI consultant from Los Angeles. He had quit his job to start a company, and until that became profitable, he decided to invest in crypto through Quadriga CX. But just like others, he soon found he couldn't withdraw his funds either. When Eli read Jennifer's statement about Gary's death, that it had occurred on December 9, 2018, but wasn't announced publicly until January 14, 2019, he immediately suspected something was wrong. Why wait over a month to tell the world? Something didn't add up. Tong, furious and desperate, joined a Telegram group for Quadriga users. There, he discovered hundreds of others like him, all victims, all asking the same question: where is our money? Among them was a mysterious user named QCXINT, a fellow investigator determined to uncover the truth. They began digging deeper, suspecting that Gary's death might not be real. Some users noticed that crypto wasn't regulated, meaning no one could verify what really happened. Others began analyzing Gary's wife Jennifer's Instagram posts, searching for clues. Soon, someone found Gary's death certificate, but the spelling of his surname was wrong. QCXINT claimed that faking such a document would be easy. Then they found something even more chilling, a screenshot from one of Gary's friends, showing his Skype account active after his supposed death. The group erupted. Could it be that Gary Cotton had faked his own death? Some believed he had escaped with all the crypto, hiding on a remote island under a new identity. Alexandra and her colleague Joe joined the investigation. They compared Gary's case to past frauds, like Samuel Israel, the hedge fund manager who faked his suicide to avoid prison, only to return and confess later. Joe began to suspect that maybe Gary Cotton had done the same. Perhaps he wasn't dead at all. Perhaps the crypto king had simply vanished, taking with him the digital fortunes of thousands of people, leaving behind nothing but questions and heartbreak. Something exactly like this must have happened. The mysterious investigator, known as QCXINT, wondered aloud, why would Gary commit such a massive crime? It was a question that echoed in every corner of the online world. To understand the man behind the chaos, QCXINT went back to the beginning, studying Gary's old YouTube channel. He watched hours of Gary's videos, cheerful, enthusiastic clips, where Gary explained Bitcoin with a smile and endless optimism. QCXINT couldn't help but ask himself, who could ever look at this man and think he was a criminal? Gary seemed harmless, passionate, confident, even inspiring. Surely such a man couldn't orchestrate one of the biggest scams in Canadian history, or could he? Then, the story shifted back to Tong. He pointed out something no one could ignore. Jennifer Robertson, Gary's wife, was the only person who had been with him at the time of his death, and after Gary's sudden passing, she became the sole controller of everything Quadriga owned. That fact set off alarm bells across the investor community. Everyone began to question Jennifer's existence, her role, and even her story. Those who had known Gary personally claimed they had never even heard of Jennifer before the scandal. Not one of them knew when or where Gary had gotten married. Then, we meet Kimberly Smith, Jennifer's sister. She spoke publicly, defending both Gary and Jennifer. Kimberly insisted that neither of them could have done something so terrible. Gary was not the kind of man who would fake his own death, she said firmly. She went on to explain that Jennifer had met Gary online, on a social platform, around 2014, and that it had been love at first sight. But on Reddit, a strange thread began circulating, a post by a user calling themselves Cassie X Contractor. They claimed to be a contractor with insider knowledge of Quadriga, running an Ask Me Anything session that grabbed everyone's attention. When someone asked if Jennifer seemed emotional at Gary's funeral, the user replied coldly, she was pretending to be sad. Later, she was partying with friends in her room. That statement set the internet ablaze. Meanwhile, Alexandra, the journalist, began wondering how much involvement did Jennifer really have, because according to her affidavit, she had told the court that only Gary knew the passwords to Quadriga's crypto wallets. After Gary's death, Quadriga filed for creditor protection, a legal process that companies use when they face severe financial trouble. In court documents, Jennifer swore that she had no role in the company's operations, that Gary had managed everything alone. But Tong found that impossible to believe. They lived together for years, he said. And you're telling me she knew nothing about how Quadriga worked? Not even a word? Then came another shocking revelation. Some of the investors' money had been transferred to an account controlled by Jennifer herself. Tong was furious. That affidavit, the one where she denied involvement, was a lie. When Alexandra and Joe tried reaching Jennifer's lawyer for clarification, there was no response. Silence. QCXINT finally voiced what many were already thinking. "This is a big game," he said. "And Jennifer's in on it. She's helping him. Maybe they'll stay low for a few years. Then when things cool down, we'll find them together, somewhere far away, on that island he bought." He believed this was an exit scam, a deliberate plan to fake Gary's death and vanish with millions. But how could they prove it? Then came Taylor, a cryptocurrency entrepreneur who joined the investigation. She remembered reading the headlines in February 2019 and thinking, if any money is being moved right now, that means Gary Cotton is still alive, because Jennifer had claimed that no one but Gary had access to the passwords. If transactions were happening after his death, it could only mean one thing: someone was lying. Taylor explained that Bitcoin's greatest strength was also its curse: transparency. Every transaction ever made is permanently recorded on the blockchain. Anyone with the right tools could trace it. Normally, 5 to 10% of an exchange's assets sit in what's called a hot wallet, a kind of online vault used for quick transfers. The rest, the bulk of the funds, are stored in cold wallets, offline, heavily secured addresses, known only to a select few. Taylor and her team found Quadriga's cold wallet addresses and started investigating. For weeks, they tracked every movement on the blockchain. And then, nothing. There were no large transactions, no movement of coins, no signs of those missing millions. It was as if Quadriga's funds had simply vanished. "This doesn't make sense," Taylor said. "There are no big transactions. It looks like Gary's gone." Now we meet Daniel, an investigator at the Ontario Securities Commission, responsible for regulating Canada's financial markets. He began digging through Quadriga's 2-year record of files. The early years seemed legitimate. Accountants, lawyers, standard paperwork. But what Daniel found buried inside those records made his blood run cold. Quadriga's digital assets had been transferred across multiple exchanges around the world. "Why?" Taylor exclaimed. "Why would one exchange send money to another exchange like that? That's not normal." Something was seriously wrong. Then, another discovery: the domain name quadrigacx.com wasn't even registered by Gary. It had originally been owned by a man named Michael Petrine. Andrew remembered the first time he met Gary and Michael together. Michael introduced himself as the founder of Quadriga CX, while Gary seemed more like his assistant, quiet, smiling, laughing at jokes that weren't even funny. Andrew had noticed then that their relationship wasn't one of equals. Digging deeper, Alexandra found shocking discussions on Reddit linking Michael Patrin to another name, Omar Danani. Danani, it turned out, had a criminal record in California. He'd been convicted for money laundering as part of an online crime syndicate called Shadow Crew. When Alexandra published this revelation in the Globe and Mail, it shook the entire crypto community. Daniel later confirmed that by February 2019, when Quadriga collapsed, the company owed its users $215 million, but only $46 million in real assets could be found. That left $169 million completely missing. Theories spread like wildfire. Many believed that Michael Patrin had run off with the money, but then Michael himself appeared in the Telegram group. He sent Alexandra and Joe an email claiming he hadn't been involved with Quadriga since 2016. QCXINT wasn't convinced. He dug through Michael's online history and found a site called Talk Gold, an old investment forum notorious for scams. There, he found the username Scepter. Scepter had been deeply involved in shady online investment schemes. He ran a company called S&S Investments, which promised big returns before suddenly vanishing with investors' funds. QCXINT connected the dots. "This is the same kind of exit scam," he said, "and I think Scepter is Gary." He and Joe began tracing the digital footprints of this mysterious Scepter. Their search led them to another forum, Black Hat World, a hub for hackers and digital marketers. There, they noticed something odd. The user Scepter kept changing their handle, trying to erase their trail. Joe reached out to Black Hat World users, asking if anyone knew which email Scepter used. A few days later, a response came, with screenshots of an account form, and on that form, the name written was Gerald Cotton. It was the smoking gun, proof that Gary Cotton had been Scepter all along. That meant both founders of Quadriga, Gary and Michael, had histories in online scams. Some users claimed Gary had been conning people since he was just 14 or 15 years old, and, chillingly, one of Scepter's old posts mentioned he was looking for a programmer to help build a crypto exchange. Just 3 months after that post, Quadriga CX was launched. It all fit. Gary Cotton had built Quadriga as his personal piggy bank, a playground where he gambled away millions of other people's money, hiding behind charm, intelligence, and lies. In a final desperate attempt to uncover the truth, the Globe and Mail sent a journalist named Nathan to Jaipur, India, where Gary had reportedly died. Nathan met the doctor who treated Gary in his final hours. The doctor recalled that Gary and Jennifer arrived at the hospital around 9:45 p.m., with Gary suffering from severe gastroenteritis, vomiting more than 10 times, running a high fever. He was admitted to a private room where Jennifer stayed by his side, but by the next afternoon, Gary's condition worsened. Around 2:45 p.m., he suffered a cardiac arrest. Doctors tried desperately to save him, but at 7:26 p.m., Gerald Cotton was pronounced dead, so perhaps he truly was gone. But then Joe discovered something chilling. Just 2 weeks before his death, Gary had quietly transferred all his assets and properties into Jennifer's name. Suspicion turned sharply toward her. People online began harassing Jennifer, calling her names, sending threats. Meanwhile, Daniel continued tracing fake accounts linked to Gary. One of them was registered under the alias Scepter Jerry. Gary had used those accounts to display fake balances, showing millions in crypto that didn't exist. He'd been selling these imaginary coins to unsuspecting users. Every time someone bought Bitcoin on Quadriga CX, Gary simply typed fake numbers into their accounts, pretending to give them crypto that was never real. That explained why money was constantly being moved to different exchanges. Gary was trying to cover his tracks, using real customers' deposits to trade, to gamble, and to pay off earlier